Hi, my name is Amy King. Thank you for inviting me here today to talk about one of my favorite covers, Motherless Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem. I was working at Doubleday at the time as senior art director. I worked on two of Mr. Lethem's previous covers, As She Climbs Across the Table and Girl in Landscape. Those books decidedly had to have a more futuristic feel. For Motherless Brooklyn, it was a completely different genre. It was more of a noirish detective novel. We wanted to use a photograph. We felt that that was the right approach. One in particular was a really dark Gothic photograph of the Brooklyn Bridge. And what I did was I ghosted our hero's tics in the background. Lionel Esrog had Tourette's syndrome, and he would always say these words and these phrases that was, as the New York Times said, was like another character in the book. So I did this very Gothic image of the bridge with these words behind it, and I had thought that maybe it would look great if it was printed on vellum. Even though everybody liked it as a design, it didn't really convey much about the book itself. So I was trying to find something that said something about the characters, which meant I really needed to have a person on the cover. Not so much that you can identify them, but it just needed to have a little bit more personality, more warmth, something that somebody could identify with. I was talking to a colleague and they said, "Oh, have you ever seen Eugene Richards' work? He is a photojournalist." So I contacted his studio and I asked if they would first be amenable to having one of his photographs used on a book cover. So they sent me some prints for consideration. I had the prints on my desk for about 2 weeks, and I was looking at it at different angles, this way and that way, and I just really didn't know what to do with it. I liked one of them very much, but I really just didn't know what to do. So I scanned the photograph on our color printer, never the best way of doing it. Now this would never be okay for the final. For the final you would usually do something like a drum scan. But for this, I just wanted to see the color and the crop and how it could possibly work on our dimensions, which are 6 by 9. So I was using this photograph. So I was using the scan, and I liked the way it looked. It looked grittier. It did not look perfect. I liked the color that the scan came in at. Rather than the drum scan, which was just too crisp, too clean, and I didn't like the colors well. Even though I could have manipulated it, I just liked the rough quality of our crappy color copier scan. I liked the drama, or what I perceived as being the drama of this photograph, except that all of the action of the photograph was in one area, and it was on the left side of the photograph. So what I did was I flipped the photograph, which is something that you're never really permitted to do in fine art photography. I flipped the photograph and I cropped it. And usually fine art photographers, even if they would allow you to use one of their photographs, they would never allow you to manipulate the image. And then in working on the type design, I just didn't think that centered or flush right was really going to do. And as I stared at it endlessly in my computer, I realized that the type really pretty much had to go on the elevated train, on these different angles. That's what really kind of made it more exciting and more appropriate to the book. The other thing is that made this photograph perfect was that part of the story, these boys work for this livery cab service, and this photograph was taken inside of a moving car. I really felt that because the car was moving, The type should be on a motion blur as well to make it look less static if it was just, just there on the angles. When I designed it this way, I really was terrified that Mr. Richards would not approve me to use his photograph. And after it went through our internal approval process, it made it through, our publisher approved it, the editor approved it, marketing approved it, the sales force approved it, it went through sales conference, Mr. Lethem approved it. Then I had to go back to Eugene Richards and say, please, are you okay with me using this photograph this way? And he said, sure. So it was all flawless in the process, that everybody just seemed to think that this was the right image and the right design for this book. Mr. Lethem was, I hate to say it, was very easy to work with. I have no idea what went on between him and his editor, but this cover was approved pretty easily. To me, the hard work was trying to find the perfect image for this. The reason why this is one of my favorite covers is because everything just worked perfectly together. The photograph was perfect for this book. It was by a wonderful photographer. The book itself, being recognized, it was a wonderful piece of fiction. The design worked in conjunction with the photograph. It didn't look forced or cheap or anything else you could come up with. It just all worked perfectly together, and that hardly ever happens. I was very proud to work on this book. I am glad that it got the recognition that it should have gotten. I also won an award for this, the 50 Books, 50 Covers Award from the AIGA, which is a very prestigious award for us designers, in that they only pick 50 covers, 50 books a year, and it was definitely, one of the highlights of my career. Thanks again for this opportunity to talk about Motherless Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem. I am very proud to say that this is my book cover, and I loved working on it. Thank you again.